What if the most important decisions are made not in noise, but in silence? What if leadership is not chosen in crowds, but in quiet moments of prayer? And what if the people Jesus chose reveal more about purpose than perfection ever could? It began on a mountain, not a stage, not a city center, not a place of influence in human terms, but a quiet place above the ordinary rhythm of life. Before anything happened, Jesus withdrew. He went up the mountain and he prayed all night. Not a short moment of reflection, not a quick decision, but extended time in conversation with the Father, because what was about to happen mattered deeply. Morning came slowly over the landscape. The world below was still, but something significant was forming above it. When day arrived, Jesus came down, and he called his disciples to himself. Not a random gathering, not a crowd selected by popularity, but those who had already begun following him. From this group, he would choose 12. 12 people, ordinary individuals, from different backgrounds, different occupations, different personalities, different levels of understanding, and yet chosen for something far greater than themselves. This moment is easy to read quickly, but it carries weight, because choosing 12 is not just an administrative act. It is a statement about purpose, about formation, about trust. Before the names are even listed, there is something important happening. Prayer precedes selection. Connection precedes commission. Because Jesus does not choose based on appearance or social value. He chooses with intention aligned with divine purpose. Then comes the list. Simon, whom he named Peter, Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James son of Alphaeus, Simon called the Zealot, Judas son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who would later betray him. Each name carries a story. Some are familiar. Some are less known. Some would become central to the early movement. Others would struggle with doubt, misunderstanding, or failure. But all were chosen. This is important, because it reveals that selection is not based on finished transformation. It is based on invitation into transformation. Jesus does not choose perfect people. He chooses available people, people willing to walk with him, people willing to learn, people willing to be shaped. And that changes how we understand calling, because we often assume readiness must come first. That qualification must precede opportunity. That strength must precede assignment. But this moment shows something different. That purpose often begins in the middle of imperfection. On that mountain, after prayer, Jesus appoints them apostles. That word matters, because disciple means learner. But apostle means one who is sent. So this is not just selection, it is transition. From learning to being sent, from following to representing, from receiving to carrying. And that transition begins not with achievement, but with calling. Among the 12 there is diversity. Fishermen, a tax collector, a political zealot, ordinary men with ordinary lives. Some worked with nets, some worked with numbers, some worked with expectations of change, and yet they are brought into one group. This alone is significant, because in normal circumstances, these people might never have shared the same table. Different values, different perspectives, different histories. But in Jesus' selection, differences are not erased. They are brought into unity of purpose. And that unity is not based on similarity, it is based on direction. They are not called to be identical, they are called to follow together. That distinction matters, because it shows that community in God's work is not about uniformity, it is about alignment. Then there is Judas Iscariot, a name that carries tension, because even within calling there is mystery. Even within selection there is complexity. He is part of the 12, yet his path becomes one of betrayal. This reminds us that proximity does not automatically produce transformation. Being close to purpose does not guarantee alignment with it. But even that reality is part of the story, because it shows that invitation does not override freedom, and that calling is offered, not forced. The 12 are chosen not because they are already fully formed, but because they are willing to follow. And through following, they will be shaped. After this moment, everything changes for them. They will witness teachings that challenge expectations. They will see miracles that defy logic. They will walk through uncertainty, misunderstanding, and growth. They will fail, they will question, they will struggle, but they will also learn. And eventually, they will be sent. But it all begins here, on a mountain, in prayer, before selection. This sequence is important because it shows a rhythm of discernment, silence before decision, connection before action, prayer before naming. In a world that often moves quickly, this moment slows everything down. It shows that meaningful choices are not rushed, they are rooted, and they are intentional. Jesus could have chosen based on reputation. He could have selected leaders already recognized in society. He could have gathered influence in a conventional way. But instead, he chooses fishermen and ordinary men. Because the goal is not social status, it is transformation. The 12 will become witnesses, not because they are qualified by the world's standards, but because they are available to be shaped. And this is where the deeper message begins to emerge. Because selection is not just about the 12. It is about how calling works. It is about how purpose is revealed. It is about how ordinary lives can become part of something larger than themselves. The mountain becomes a symbol, a place of separation from noise, a place of clarity, a place where decisions are not influenced by crowds or pressure, but by alignment with something deeper. When Jesus comes down, he does not come with uncertainty. He comes with clarity. He calls the disciples, and he appoints the 12. There is intention in every step, and that intention shapes everything that follows, because what begins here will extend far beyond this moment. These 12 will carry teachings, they will spread messages, they will face opposition, they will experience growth and failure, but they will also become part of a foundation that continues long after them. And that foundation begins with being chosen, not for perfection, but for purpose. This story also challenges how we view ourselves, because it removes the idea that qualification is the entry point. Instead, it shows that willingness is, availability is, response is. The 12 were not selected because they had everything figured out. They were selected because they were willing to walk with Jesus. And in that walking, they would learn, they would change, they would grow. That is how transformation happens, not before the journey, but through it. The names in the list are not just historical references. They are reminders that calling is personal, specific, intentional, each one known, each one seen, each one included, even with differences, even with limitations, even with unknown futures. And that inclusion is powerful, because it shows that purpose does not require pre-perfection. It invites participation. The mountain moment is brief in description, but deep in meaning, because it reveals a process, prayer, discernment, selection, commission. And each step matters, because nothing here is random. Everything is intentional. Even the quietness before action has meaning. And when the 12 are named, history begins to shift, not because they are powerful on their own, but because they are connected to something greater than themselves. That is the essence of this passage. Not elevation of individuals, but formation of purpose. And it begins with a simple act, being chosen. From there, everything unfolds. They will walk with Jesus. They will learn from him. They will misunderstand him. They will grow through experience. And eventually, they will be sent into the world, carrying what they have received. But none of that happens without this moment, the moment on the mountain, where silence becomes clarity, and clarity becomes calling, and calling becomes mission. And that is where their story begins. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who